What's going on, guys? Before I get started, I want to point out one thing. I know most of you guys noticed that I always drink my water during my reviews. This is my trusty water jug, and this is all I drink and consume throughout my breakfast, lunch, and dinner meals. So I drink this next to my meals, and this is all I drink. And I know some people drink sodas, and that's understandable between sodas or energy drinks, and considering that people actually have to need to get their kick throughout the day, especially if they're at work, I understand. So, and then some people even drink coffee too, which I understand that too, but water's good for you. It's actually good for cleaning out your kidneys, and it makes you feel good too. So yeah, I definitely recommend a bottle of H2O to start your day. I know some of you guys might drink different types of consumptions, but I definitely would recommend water because it's good for you too. So, but enough about my advertisement on water. What I want to talk about is the Moon Knight series. So next week, Moon Knight's going to drop on Disney Plus, and it's going to have 6 episodes. And from what I've heard from different media sources, and some of them actually saw the first episode early, I'll have a chance to watch the episode 2 and do my review on it. But for the episode that's already dropped, for those that have already seen it, from the reviews that I've read, especially from the Real Rejects and Cosmic Wonder, which I will get to in a second, the episode, especially the first one, is really awesome. So I'm actually looking forward to how Oscar Isaac is going to bring in his take on Mark Spector. I know he's read the comics. I mean, they all do that too, because they basically take all the characters and they'll read the comics and study them and just bring their own spin to it as well. So it's not like actors don't know anything about the comics, because this is what they sign up for. And they pretty much have people studying the characters and the history of it too. It's the reason why we have documentaries on Disney Plus about how all the Marvel characters came to life and everything like that. So, but yeah, the first episode is actually a banger, and I'm looking forward to seeing it because, you know, it's going to be dealing with Mark Spector and him embracing his identity as Moon Knight, but he also has PTSD as well. So, and then on top of that, we have a confrontation or a communication between Mark Spector and William and Stephen Grant at the same time. So they're going to definitely interact with each other, with Steven and Mark. So that's going to be pretty cool too. But yeah, speaking of Cosmic Wonder, he was actually talking about the early reviews too. And like I said, from what I've been hearing, the first episode is incredible. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that and doing my review on Moon Knight as well. So, and as I mentioned before from the past Moon Knights, from my past videos talking about Moon Knight, is the fact that Moon Knight is one of my favorite characters. He's basically Marvel's answer to Batman. So basically, he pretty much embraces all of his incredible moves, and on top of that, he's also the God Moon Khonshu. So, and then on top of that, speaking of Khonshu, his artwork, Khonshu, is actually pretty cool too. So his art design is just incredible. So I'm looking forward to the series. But let's hear out Cosmic Wonder and talk about the early reviews. So without further ado, let's get into it.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all things Marvel and MCU. I'm your host, Warren Thompson, and we have our first initial reviews of Moon Knight in. A select handful of big media companies out there were chosen to receive an early screening of the film. I say this because normal press, including myself, gets to see it tomorrow, so I'll be sure to do a video letting you know what I personally think, but some got to see it pretty dang early, and we have their initial reactions here that I'm going to go over, and it sounds like we're in for a pretty big treat with Moon Knight. It sounds like it's going to be very, very different than anything that we've really seen before in the MCU, and for those of you who were really hoping for that darker side of the MCU with Moon Knight, it sounds like we are indeed going to be getting it. So let's jump into these reviews and see what people are saying. And of course, if you love Marvel and the MCU, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU videos. This first one is coming from Sab Astley over at Collider, and they say, Moon Knight is a brilliantly bonkers, dark, globe-trotting adventure.
Right.
That's already off to a pretty great start, but they continue to say, this is Marvel's trippy national treasure. Oscar Isaac is the best addition to the MCU since Robert Downey Jr., entwining torment and humor.
That's a great comparison, because Robert Downey Jr. was the first one that introduced Iron Man to the MCU in 2008. And of course, being a comic book fan myself, Robert Downey Jr. suits the role for Tony as well, because as I mentioned in my past videos, both guys have had their struggles with alcohol. So it's a perfect role for both Tony and Robert Downey Jr. at the same time. But that's a great comparison between RDJ and Oscar Isaacs, because they're both incredible actors. And of course, this is actually Moon Knight's first foray into the MCU. And being a lifelong comic book fan like myself, who's been a fan of Moon Knight since the beginning, this is actually going to be really cool. And the fact that they're going to take the story and put it into the MCU, and how Stephen Grant and Mark Spector, both one and the same, going to embrace their roles as Moon Knight. So it's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to the series, so it's going to be awesome.
Into a morally ambiguous cipher, Mark Spector is a whole new caliber of hero. Now, this is a pretty dang good review.
Exactly.
Reaction to
RDJ is the father of MCU,
Robert
pretty
Downey
much.
Jr., the father of it all. Iron Man, who started it all. That's pretty big. Now, I love Oscar Isaac. I don't doubt that he's going to smash it out of the park, but that is still a pretty big praise right there.
Yeah.
But Collider isn't the only people who were impressed. Ashanti Umkar over at BBC states, Moon Knight is dazzling. Oscar Isaac is a revelation. Put on your Disney Plus UK watch list for 30th of March 2022. Relish the music of Hasham Nazum and see May Kalamwe bringing her effortless flair to the screen. So some more big praise for Oscar Isaac. They specifically...
Yeah, so March 30th, of course, is when Moon Knight's going to drop. So that's where the series is going to go to Disney Plus. But other than that, yeah, that's a great comparison. Great comparison between Oscar and RDJ. So we're definitely going to see like a really great hero at the same time too. So I'm looking forward to it. But it's going to be cool. And like I said, like most actors, they basically take the comics and they study them to embrace their characters. So it's not like they hear the fans and know how the characters are going to present, because they too are comic book fans too. So
specifically say he is a revelation and that Moon Knight is dazzling. So far, these reviews definitely caught my attention, but this next one isn't so over the top like these others. This is from Emily Murray from Zabby, and she says, delivering lots of Indiana Jones style archaeology action. Just swap out the whip for a cape, and Oscar Isaac's great turn in the lead role. Moon Knight is plenty of fun. It's not as bonkers as I hoped for, but a later episode hints much more of that is coming. Now, I believe, and I should have stated this in the beginning, that these critics have seen the first 4 episodes of Moon Knight. That's a lot of episodes. I don't know how many I'll personally get. I just know I get them tomorrow. But they've seen a good amount of this series now. And even though this review says it's not as bonkers as she hoped for, that still doesn't mean that it wasn't really good. She still praised Oscar Isaac for the lead role, and even compared it to Indiana Jones, which of course is a win. However, a lot of the other reviews are really, really good. Let's go over to Tom Power from Tech Radar, and he had a lot to say here. He says, it's unlike anything you've seen from Marvel before. I'd go as far as to say, and I don't say this lightly, it's the best MCU TV show ever. Moon Knight is the beneficiary of being completely untethered from every other MCU project. Without those connections weighing, if that's the right word to use, it down, it has a freedom to do whatever it wants, and oh boy, does it. The opening episode is structured in such a way that, but for the Marvel logo at the start, you wouldn't think it's an MCU TV series. The way it's edited, how its narrative plays out, Isaac's mesmeric, fully present performance honestly is top tier TV. I'll save the rest for my review. There are a couple of tiny little things there about it, just to put that out there, but Moon Knight is worth the wait. Again, a great review about Moon Knight with really high praise to the series. Now, this one I really like because it talks about how different Moon Knight is from all of the other MCU projects. I've heard a lot of people and seen a lot of comments in the comment section talking about how Marvel's releasing so much stuff right now. And while some fans, like myself, may absolutely just love that and watch everything that comes out, some might have to pick and choose what they watch. And it sounds like Moon Knight is just going to be completely different than anything we've seen before, so I suggest everybody watching this. Now, some of these critics have actually mentioned how weird and actually said the word horror in their review, which I know a lot of people are going to like. Tom Percival from BBC Radio says, had a lot of fun with Moon Knight. It started weird and only seems to be getting weirder. A good blend of horror, action and humor. Plus, he has a great cape. It's interesting that he uses the words weird, horror, action, and humor in the same paragraph. But that's actually kind of something that I wanted for Moon Knight. It's kind of a psychological thriller, which I'm actually really excited for.
It's a psychological
but the fact that
thriller.
It still has some humor into it is obviously really good as well. The University Film Review says, Moon Knight is fantastic, and Oscar Isaac is exceptional as the tormented Mark Spector. This is the Marvel show everyone is going to be talking about. Completely bonkers that leads with a haunting adventure. Marvel Studios has knocked it out of the park with its best show yet.
And like I said, basically Moon Knight is Marvel's answer to Batman. So this is definitely going to be a psychological thriller for sure. So, and on top of that, the comparison, like I just said, between Oscar and Robert Downey Jr., spot on. Because RDJ was the one that brought Iron Man to the MCU. So he's technically the father of the MCU. So, but besides the point, Moon Knight's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing it, and all 6 episodes is going to be incredible.
So a few people have called it bonkers and weird, and now a couple of reviews have said that it's Marvel's best show yet. Now, right now as it stands, Loki is my favorite show, followed closely by WandaVision. But based off of these reviews, I am wondering if it's going to stay that way, if my top 2 are going to stay that way after seeing
Well, I like Loki too.
Let's go over to David Opie from Digital Spy. He says,
I like them all.
The first 4 Moon Knight episodes, and I'm as divided by the show as Mark Spector himself. When it works, it's a wildly original MCU entry with flashes of greatness, but some of the sillier aspects detract from the horror. Die-hard comic fans might not enjoy it as much as newcomers. And honestly, that is something that I think every MCU film or show has had to deal with, because they obviously don't just copy the comics. Heck, in the Ms. Marvel trailer yesterday, they completely changed up her powers, and that could piss some people off. Instead of her being exposed to the Terrigen Mist, she gets a bracelet that seemingly gives her her powers. That is completely different than the comics. But if everything went exactly how it went in the comics, we would already know what would happen, and we'd already know what to expect.
True.
Now, this review does mention the horror aspect as well.
And that's the difference between like comic book fans and people who are getting into the MCU. It's because comic book fans like myself know what's going to happen to the characters. But with the MCU, they're always going to do some changes too. So, but if you know what the comic books are like, then the changes to the MCU, if they do like a lot of marks to it, it's not that bad. But some of them can be kind of like, I wouldn't call them cringe, but some of them can be questionable. But like I said, you're introducing an audience to these heroes. But hardcore comic book fans like myself, and you guys included, you guys pretty much know what's going to happen in the comics in the MCU. So regardless, still going to be awesome anyway. So.
However, he says that there are sillier sides that do detract from that horror aspect. Now, keep in mind, it's kind of like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Yes, it's supposed to be the first horror film in the MCU, but it is still PG-13, and it is still a Marvel/Disney movie. The same goes for Moon Knight. Sounds like it's going to be weird, going to be trippy, have a horror aspect to it, but it's still going to be a Marvel Studios project on Disney+. So don't expect it to be like some rated R horror film. The last review we'll go over here is from David C. James over at Games Freezer, and he says, Moon Knight is a very weird show with no obvious connections to the rest of the MCU.
I love Moon Knight,
is
though.
All the better for it. Oscar Isaac rivaling Tom Hardy for best regular guy, taunted by deep voice monster that lives in his head performance. Another big comparison there, comparing Oscar Isaac's performance to Tom Hardy's as Venom. And again, we get a mention of how weird it is and how it doesn't have really any connections to the MCU. Now, of course, I do ultimately think that they're going to connect Moon Knight to the MCU by the end of it. I actually do think Moon Knight is going to go on to become an Avenger. But it does seem like this is kind of not necessarily an experiment, but essentially an experiment. They're taking it a very different direction than anything they've ever done before, but I say it's not an experiment because Kevin Feige does everything pretty perfectly. So
he does.
This could be the future of where Marvel Studios is going, doing one-off projects that don't
Kudos
necessarily
to Kevin Feige, by the
focus on
way.
that
Shout out to
MCU
Kevin.
connection, but of
You're the
course
man.
are connected to the MCU. So, these reviews seem to be pretty dang good. What do you think about them? Are you excited for Moon Knight? And of course, once I watch all of the episodes that I get tomorrow, I'll be sure to give you my initial thoughts as well. And I'm also going to the premiere on Tuesday, so I'll probably vlog that as well. But in the meantime, what do you think of these reactions? Are you excited for Moon Knight? Let me know your thoughts.
Yes, I'm very excited, so I can't wait. I'm definitely watching the episodes too and do my review as well. And then, like I said, it's going to be incredible. I'm looking forward to the series. And then on top of that, if you think about it like this, I mean, Mark Spector does join the Avengers in the comics, so he's a founding member of the Avengers. He actually teams up with the West Coast Avengers as well, so I think eventually we'll see the West Coast Avengers down the road. So I think Kevin Feige will at least get to that, if not for Phase 4, more than likely for Phase 5. So we'll definitely see how that's going to work out too. So because again, we got Secret Invasion, we got Multiverse of Madness, and Secret Wars is supposed to be coming out, or we're going into the works as well. So we'll see how that actually comes about. But I'm very excited for Moon Knight. It's going to be awesome. I'm practically decking out in like Moon Knight colors in a sense. But yeah, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. It's going to be a great series. I think the first episode, from what I've been hearing, is fantastic. So I'm looking forward to seeing that as well though. But yeah, guys, comment below. Let me know what you guys think. Like I said, I'm going to do a review for Moon Knight as well. So be on the lookout for that. Like this video. Share this video. Continue to do your guys' part. Thank you guys for subscribing. Share the message. Share the videos. And keep spreading love, be love, and I'm going to catch you guys in the next one. I'll see ya.